Today we're jumping into a real classic, one that's charmed readers for, what, over 200 years now? Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice.
That's right.
And it's not just a beloved romance novel, is it? It's
Mhm.
also this incredibly witty, sharp look at society, character,
Yeah.
and, yeah, those crucial first impressions.
Indeed. It was published anonymously, actually, back in 1813, 3 volumes. And it was originally called First Impressions.
Well, makes sense.
Yeah, and it sold out its first run in under a year, and believe it or not, has literally never been out of print since.
Wow.
So our mission today is really to dig into why it's still so compelling. We'll dissect that turbulent relationship between Elizabeth Bennet and Fitzwilliam Darcy, and look at how they managed to overcome their initial flaws, Darcy's pride, almost arrogance about his place in society, and Elizabeth's quickness to judge, her prejudice based on those first meetings to actually see each other and find love.
We'll explore how Austen just masterfully puts this whole story together. Right from that famous opening line, the one, "It is a truth universally acknowledged."
That a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Classic.
Right, all the way through to the very satisfying ending. Our deep dives today, it's built on plot summaries and character analysis from Lit Charts and Britannica, just to make sure we're getting to the heart of what makes this story tick. So, yeah, let's unpack this.
Okay.
So our journey kicks off in rural England, right around the turn of the 19th century. We're at the Bennet household in Longbourn.
Mm-hmm. And this is where we meet the family whose future is really tangled up in the social rules of the time.
You've got Mr. and Mrs. Bennet and their 5 daughters. Very different daughters, apparently.
Very. There's Jane, Elizabeth, Mary, Kitty, and Lydia. And Mrs. Bennet, the mother, she is just desperate to get them married off.
Right, and you read about her and sometimes think, wow, she's a bit much. But her desperation, it's not just social climbing, is it?
Not at all. It might seem like that, but it's actually rooted in a very real, very pressing concern. It's about survival, almost.
Her enthusiasm, which sometimes comes across as a bit indelicate.
Maybe a little over the top. Yeah.
It's driven by this practical fear, isn't it? The family estate, Longbourn, it's entailed.
Exactly, entailed away from the female line. So it goes to Mr. Collins, who's Mr. Bennet's cousin, the closest male relative.
So if the daughters don't marry well?
They face a really uncertain, pretty grim future, which makes Mrs. Bennet's slight craziness, maybe?
More understandable.
Definitely more understandable. She sees the potential disaster much more clearly than her husband, Mr. Bennet.
Who's quite eccentric and sarcastic himself.
Right. He loves his older daughters, Jane, and especially Elizabeth, but he's pretty hands-off with the younger ones, doesn't really curb their sillier instincts.
And the daughters themselves. Quite a range of personalities.
Oh, yeah. Jane, the eldest, she's really sweet-natured, modest. Elizabeth, our heroine, is sharp, intelligent, high-spirited. She kind of shares her dad's cynicism about wealth and rank.
Then there's Mary.
Mary's the plain one, bookish, bit pompous, always ready with a moral lesson nobody asked for.
Ah.
And the youngest two, Lydia and Kitty, are just flighty, immature, obsessed with officers. So you've got quite the mix there, even before any men show up.
And speaking of men, into this slightly chaotic household full of marriage plots and social anxiety, arrive the eligible bachelors.
Cue the excitement.
First up is Mr. Bingley. Wealthy, moves into Netherfield Park nearby, causes a huge stir. Sounds like the perfect guy, right? Good-looking gentleman like easy manners.
He is very agreeable, but importantly, his fortune comes from trade.
Ah, right. You mentioned that was seen as less respectable than old inherited money. How big a deal was that?
It was a noticeable distinction. It put him just slightly below the top tier, the landed gentry, in that rigid social hierarchy. It wasn't a deal breaker, but it was noted, especially compared to his friend.
His friend, Mr. Darcy, Fitzwilliam Darcy, who makes, shall we say, a less favorable first impression.
Understatement of the century, maybe. He comes across as incredibly snobby, rude, especially towards Elizabeth right at that first ball.
While Bingley is immediately charmed by Jane.
Instantly smitten. But Darcy, he's presented as arrogant, aloof, though also perceptive, very much a product of that hierarchical thinking, believing in the natural superiority of his class, the wealthy landowners.
And this contrast, this immediate clash, it just sets up the whole Pride and Prejudice thing perfectly, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You see Darcy's pride in his status right away, and Elizabeth's quick judgment, her prejudice forms just as fast based on his manners. It's almost like Austen handed us the title on page 1.
It really is. And even as Jane and Bingley start getting closer, Darcy, almost against his own will, finds himself drawn to Elizabeth. He notices her beauty, her intelligence,
Her liveliness.
but she just keeps seeing him as this arrogant snob. And her prejudice really hardens, doesn't it, when she meets George Wickham?
Ah, Wickham, the charming officer.
Exactly. She finds him utterly charming, and he feeds her this sob story about how Darcy cheated him out of his inheritance.
And Elizabeth just laps it up. It's a classic case of being taken in by a smooth talker, isn't it? It shows how her prejudice makes her vulnerable to Wickham's lies.
While Darcy's bluntness, which is probably part of his pride,
Just confirms her negative opinion, even though, ironically, he might be the more honest one in that situation. The plot definitely starts getting complicated here.
it does. Jane gets sick while visiting Bingley at Netherfield.
Right, she catches a bad cold after riding there in the rain, largely thanks to Mrs. Bennet's scheming.
Oh, of course. And Elizabeth goes to Netherfield to nurse her.
Which throws her into Darcy's path again. And despite the Bennet family connections, which he disapproves of, and the snobbery of Bingley sisters, Caroline and Louisa.
Especially Caroline, who wants Darcy for herself.
Right, she's actively scheming. Despite all that, Darcy finds his attraction to Elizabeth growing.
It's interesting how even in these moments of concern for Jane, there's still all this social maneuvering happening in the background.
Always. And just as things are getting tangled with Bingley, Jane, Darcy, and Elizabeth, enter Mr. Collins.
Oh, Mr. Collins, the clergyman cousin who stands to inherit Longbourn.
The very same, described quite generously as not a sensible man.
That feels like a huge understatement based on his letters and his behavior, and he's got this connection to Lady Catherine de Bourgh,
His patroness, who also happens to be
Darcy's aunt. It's all very interconnected, isn't it?
very. So Collins arrives with the express purpose of finding a wife among the Bennet girls, sort of to make amends for inheriting the estate.
And he sets his sights on Elizabeth.
After initially considering Jane, yes, he proposes to Elizabeth in a truly awful, pompous way,
And she turns him down flat, which pleases her father.
but horrifies her mother, naturally. It's quite a bold move for Elizabeth, turning down security like that.
And then, in a twist that really highlights the pressures on women, Collins almost immediately proposes to Elizabeth's best friend, Charlotte Lucas,
And Charlotte accepts.
which shocks Elizabeth. Charlotte's so sensible, pragmatic.
Exactly. And that's why she accepts, not for love, but for security. She's 27, considered past her prime, and this is likely her best, maybe her only, chance for a comfortable home and future. It's quite a stark dose of reality.
It really is. It contrasts so sharply with Elizabeth's own views on marriage. And then more drama. Bingley suddenly leaves Netherfield and heads back to London.
Just ups and leaves, and Caroline Bingley sends Jane a letter saying they probably won't be back, and hints strongly that Bingley is expected to marry Darcy's younger sister, Georgiana.
Who's only 16. Jane is devastated.
Absolutely heartbroken, and Elizabeth is furious. She becomes completely convinced that Darcy and Caroline deliberately plotted to separate Bingley from Jane.
Which just adds fuel to her anti-Darcy fire.
Oh, totally. It cements her view of him as proud, interfering, and cold. Later, their kind aunt and uncle, the Gardiners, who are sensible, grounded people, even though they're in trade, invite Jane to London hoping a change of scene might help.
But Caroline Bingley is horrid to her there, isn't she?
Gives her the cold shoulder, basically, which confirms Elizabeth's worst opinions of the whole Bingley-Darcy circle.
Okay, so things are pretty tense, and this leads us towards a really pivotal confrontation, doesn't it?
It does. Elizabeth goes to visit the newly married Charlotte and Mr. Collins in Kent,
Which means she also has to deal with his patroness, the formidable Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
who is just as awful as you'd expect. But Darcy is also visiting his aunt at Rosings Park nearby, and Colonel Fitzwilliam, his cousin.
And Darcy starts seeking Elizabeth out.
Surprisingly, yes. He visits the parsonage frequently, often joining Elizabeth when she goes for walks. They have these quite long, intimate conversations, which is a big shift from their earlier interactions.
But then Elizabeth finds out something crucial from Colonel Fitzwilliam, right?
Yes. Fitzwilliam casually mentions that Darcy recently saved a friend, clearly Bingley, from an imprudent marriage.
To Jane.
To Jane, this confirms Elizabeth's worst fears about Darcy's interference. She is absolutely livid.
And right at that moment, when she's furious with him,
He walks in, completely oblivious, declares his passionate love for her, and proposes marriage.
wow, talk about bad timing. How could he possibly misread the room so badly?
Well, it's his pride, isn't it? He's so convinced of his own social standing and maybe the depth of his own feelings that he assumes she'll be flattered and accept. He even details all the reasons against the match, her family, her connections while proposing.
Oh, that's not smooth.
Not smooth at all. So, predictably, Elizabeth lets him have it.
Refuses him completely.
Absolutely refuses. And she tells him exactly why. Accuses him of ruining Jane's happiness, of behaving arrogantly, and of mistreating Wickham based on the story he told her.
It's the perfect storm of her prejudice and his pride clashing head-on.
Exactly. It's the climax of their initial conflict. But this refusal, this confrontation, it actually leads to the big turning point.
The letter.
The letter. The next day, Darcy finds her and gives her a long letter explaining himself.
And what does it say? Does he defend himself?
He does. He admits he advised Bingley against Jane, but he says it was because he genuinely believed Jane wasn't deeply in love with Bingley. Her reserved nature hid her feelings.
Okay. Plausible maybe from his perspective.
And then, crucially, he reveals the real story about Wickham.
What's the truth there?
The truth is, Wickham is a complete scoundrel. Darcy's father had provided for him, but Wickham squandered the money, tried to elope with Darcy's 15-year-old sister Georgiana for her fortune,
Oh my God.
and generally behaved disgracefully. Darcy paints a picture of Wickham as a liar and a manipulator.
And this shakes Elizabeth.
Completely shakes her. She starts reevaluating everything: Wickham's inconsistencies, Darcy's behavior. She realizes she'd been totally blind, taken in by charm and her own prejudice. She starts to feel she massively misjudged Darcy. It's the first real crack in that wall she built up against him.
That's a huge shift. But just as she's processing this, disaster strikes back home, right?
Big time. Lydia, the youngest, most reckless sister.
The one obsessed with officers.
Yep. She gets permission to go to Brighton, where Wickham's regiment is stationed. Elizabeth strongly advises her father against it, sensing the danger. But Mr. Bennet lets her go anyway.
And predictably.
Lydia elopes with Wickham, just runs off with him with no marriage apparently planned.
Which in that society is just catastrophic.
Utter ruin for Lydia, and it taints the reputation of the entire family, potentially ruining the marriage prospects for all the other sisters. It's a nightmare scenario.
The family must be frantic.
Absolutely frantic. Mr. Bennet and Mr. Gardiner go searching for them in London. There's a period of terrible uncertainty.
And when they're finally found,
Mr. Gardiner tracks them down. Wickham agrees to marry Lydia, but only if his considerable debts are paid off and he gets a guaranteed income. Basically blackmail.
and the family assumes Mr. Gardiner, the kind uncle, pays up.
They do. They assume he settled everything to save the family honor. Lydia and Wickham come back, briefly, acting like nothing's wrong, much to Mrs. Bennet's shallow relief that one daughter is finally married, even under these circumstances.
But that's not the whole story, is it? Elizabeth finds out something else.
Through Lydia's careless chatter, Elizabeth pieces together the truth. It wasn't Mr. Gardiner who paid Wickham off.
It was Darcy.
It was Darcy. He found them, negotiated with Wickham, paid his huge debts, bought him a commission in the army, all anonymously, essentially, out of his love for Elizabeth. He did it to save her family from disgrace, even though it meant dealing with Wickham, a man he despises, and associating himself with the scandal.
That completely changes everything for Elizabeth, doesn't it? It shatters her remaining prejudice.
Absolutely. It's undeniable proof of his true character, his generosity, his willingness to act against his own pride for her sake. It's the ultimate turning point for her feelings.
So, with the scandal smoothed over, thanks to Darcy, what happens next?
Well, Bingley comes back to Netherfield, bringing Darcy with him.
Ah, the moment we've been waiting for.
Right. And this time, encouraged subtly by Darcy, Bingley wastes no time. He proposes to Jane.
And she accepts?
Joyfully, finally. One happy ending secured.
But what about Elizabeth and Darcy? There's still Lady Catherine.
Oh, yes. Lady Catherine gets wind of a rumor that Darcy might propose to Elizabeth and charges down to Longbourn in a fury.
To warn Elizabeth off.
Tries to bully her into promising she'll never accept Darcy. But Elizabeth stands up to her magnificently, refuses to be intimidated, refuses to make any such promise. It's a fantastic scene showing Elizabeth's strength.
And ironically, Lady Catherine's interference actually helps Darcy.
It gives him hope, because Elizabeth's refusal to promise suggests she might accept him. So shortly after, Darcy proposes again.
And this time?
This time, Elizabeth accepts. She tells him honestly how her prejudice had blinded her.
And does Darcy acknowledge his part? His pride.
He does. He admits his upbringing made him proud and arrogant, and that she taught him humility. They both acknowledge their faults and how they've grown.
So, double wedding.
Double wedding. Both couples get married, the Bennet family rejoices, especially Mrs. Bennet, and well, they all live, more or less, happily ever after.
What a fantastic resolution. It really shows how the novel lives up to its title, doesn't it?
It really does. You see the characters driven initially by these very flaws: Darcy's pride, his arrogance, his belief in his social superiority, and Elizabeth's prejudice, her quick, often wrong judgments based on limited information, like Wickham's lies.
Hmm.
Their whole journey is about self-reflection, isn't it?
Yeah.
About growth. They have to confront their own biases, their own pride and prejudice to actually see each other clearly.
And connecting that to the bigger picture, you said it earlier, it's so much more than just a love story. It's this really sharp critique of the social norms of the time.
Absolutely. The crucial role of marriage, especially for women's security, the rigid class system, the pressure to marry well, Austen dissects it all with such incredible wit.
Yeah, the superb characters, the satire, the irony, it all brings that world and its constraints vividly to life.
Which I think raises a really interesting question for all of us, even today. What does Pride and Prejudice really tell us about the power, maybe even the necessity, of challenging our own first impressions, not just in romance, but in any part of life?
That's a great point.
The whole story is a reminder that real understanding, true connection, often requires moving past those initial snap judgments, doesn't it? It requires allowing deeper knowledge, maybe even uncomfortable truths to come through. When you think about Elizabeth and Darcy finally getting past their biases, what really stands out to you? What's the key takeaway about overcoming those initial barriers?